Alright guys, so today's video we're checking out the brand new SoundPEATS Air3, or technically True Air 3, but SoundPEATS decided to drop the True out of the name. But essentially this is a sequel to that pair. They did make these 10% smaller, and I can tell you now, this is a very small case with a very small pair of earbuds. So it makes it pretty convenient to just kind of throw in your bag or your pocket. This just isn't going to take up a whole lot of space. Now the earbuds are an open air design earbud. It does have a short little stem to it that's kind of closer to the AirPods Pros, but having the open air design makes them a lot closer to the original AirPods. There's no silicone ear tip. You just place the earbud in and it's just kind of hanging there. You're either going to love or hate this. I am generally not a fan of this type of design because I like having that isolated feel, but I do understand the purpose of this. There's just some people that can't wear normal earbuds, and there's some situations where you still need to hear a lot of the things around you. So if you just want to put one earbud in and listen to music kind of as like a background thing and take phone calls, these are usually the best pairs for that. But as far as the pricing on these, in typical SoundPEATS fashion, it is a budget pair of earbuds. They do come in retailing at $50, but SoundPEATS also sent a discount code, which will be in the description below, where you can pick them up today all the way through the end of the month for around $38. So at $38, once you see what all these have and what they're capable of, this is just a nice pair to have as a backup, or just a pair that you can kind of always have with you. But we're going to check out those features. We're going to talk about the sound and see why it's worth the $38 to $50. So to start with, let's go back to the design real quick. I want to explain why I'm not a huge fan of open air design earbuds. I feel like they just don't give you the same bass response that a normal pair gives you. Without having that seal, you just don't get the punch because a lot of things are just kind of allowed to flow out. But what SoundPEATS did to kind of combat this is they put a 14.2 millimeter driver in here, which is a very large driver for any pair of earbuds, but specifically for a pair that's this small. So we'll talk a little bit more about this once we get to the sound. But as far as the technology in here, these are Bluetooth 5.2. They're also using a Qualcomm 3040 chip, which is one of those chips that's trying to give you better performance and not drain your battery as much as some of the others. And these also have aptX adaptive playback. You normally do not see this in a pair that's $50 and under, but with having aptX adaptive playback, it's automatically trying to adjust depending on your connection, depending on what you're listening to, so that if you're watching a movie or video, it's trying to cut down on any kind of lag. But with music, it's also trying to adjust so that you don't have compression issues and everything just always sounds as good as it can. So again, that's very impressive that this pair has this. And on top of the cutting down the latency, it also has a gaming mode that you can switch them into, which cuts down your latency to like 60 milliseconds. So if you're going to be gaming on your phone or your tablet or whatever, and you notice that there's some lag, switching it over into this mode is going to cut a lot of that out, but it is also going to cut a lot of your battery out as well. So do keep that in mind. Now this pair does come in with an IPX5 rating, which means if you want to use these at the gym, it's going to be fine. If you sweat heavily, if you're outdoors and it starts to rain, you're going to be fine, but just make sure that you don't submerge these into water. Now this is usually the part of the video where I talk about what comes inside the box, and with this pair, because it's an open air design, it's pretty simple. All you're getting is this very small USB-C cable, and you are going to have to use a USB-C cable because the case on these is not a Qi wireless charging case, so you can't use a wireless charger. But in this price range, I'll say that's a little forgivable. But speaking of the charging, battery life is very impressive, again, especially because these have such a small form factor. The earbuds themselves, you can get around 5 hours, and with the charging case, you're going to get around 17 hours total. And if you do happen to pick the earbuds up and they are dead, it is going to take you about an hour to an hour and a half to get a full charge. These do not have fast charging, which I would have liked to have seen as well. But again, I always have to kind of factor in the price that you're able to pick them up for. But moving over to looking at the case, it's just one of the smallest cases that I've seen. Now on the top, you can see SoundPEATS branding. On the bottom, you can see the USB-C input. And then around on the front, you have a pairing button. And then right above that, you have a small light, which is the indicator light, so that you kind of have a good idea of how much battery is left on the case. Now, moving over to the earbuds themselves, again, this is one of the smallest that I've seen, especially with the stem. Now, these do use touch controls, and I'm happy to say that they give you control over everything. So on top of the normal play, pause, skipping your tracks forward, going backwards, and your volume control, you're also able to switch it over into that gaming mode from the earbuds. So you don't need an app. They don't work with an app. And it's nice that you can just do that all from the earbuds. And these also have the smart sensors. So if you do take the earbuds out, it'll just pause automatically. And then it just resumes once you put them back in. And for you guys that do like to use your earbuds for phone calls, I think these do a pretty decent job. Each earbud is using dual mics, and they're also using the CVC 8.0 technology to try to block out a lot of your surroundings during phone calls. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here. All right, guys, so here is a mic test using the Air 3. I think it does a pretty decent job of picking up my voice. I think for a pair that's under $50, if you're somebody that likes to take phone calls while you're at work and not have to worry about holding your phone, this does a really good job with this, but this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call. And so now here's the mic test with the crowd noise being played, which you can hear here, and so can I because of the design, but this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call. So now let's talk about the sound, because again, like I said at the beginning of the video, they are trying to combat the fact that this is an open air design by giving you such a large driver. And I was pretty impressed with the bass response that these had. Now, they are still going to lack that punch and that thump that a normal pair of earbuds would. That's just always going to be the case if you have an earbud that doesn't completely seal your ear canal. There's just things that are going to leak out, and that's what these do. So if you are a bass head and you just like that overpowering bass, just like with any open air design earbud, I wouldn't recommend these. It's just not going to give you that. But as far as an open air design earbud, this is some of the best bass response that I've heard. It does have a slight kick to it. It doesn't feel like you're listening to a cheap Bluetooth speaker out in the open in a crowded environment where you just think you hear bass, but you really don't. It does have a slight kick to it, but the mids and the treble are definitely the focal point. The mids are pushed forward where no matter what genre I listen to, vocalists always sounded right there up front. Even with just metal and a lot of things going on, you don't have that bass trying to muddy up your sound or make it sound congested, so it allows vocalists to stand out more. And because of this design, you're getting a much more open sound, so it kind of resembles listening to something more in a natural environment, just minus that bass that you might get if you were next to a subwoofer. That's kind of the best way to explain the sound on these. The treble is definitely nice and bright, and because you don't have that really thick bass to kind of counteract that bright treble, sometimes it can seem a little too harsh. I'm one of those that likes to have a bright treble, but it's usually because I like that thick bass to balance that out a little bit. And so with this pair, it's more leaning towards one side, which at times kind of makes it feel like it's lacking in the other. But like I said, it has this very open sound, so as far as the soundstage and the sound imaging, it's excellent. It sounds very open, and because the focus is on the mids and the treble, there's no issues with being able to tell where sounds or subtle things are coming from. So I was actually really impressed with the audio quality, given the design. Again, I'm usually not a fan of this type, and I can see myself using these in a lot of different situations. Would this pair ever be like my main pair of earbuds? No, I could never use an open air design earbud as my main earbud. That's just never gonna happen. And some of the other cons that, kind of hold me back from using these as a full-time earbud is it doesn't have Qi wireless charging, which I'll just like to have. There's no fast charge feature, so if I pick my earbuds up and they're dead, I just like throwing them in a case real quick, especially if I'm going to hit at the batting cages. Throwing a pair of earbuds in a case for 5 or 10 minutes minutes, and getting an hour's worth of use is just always convenient. And then really the only other con just comes back to this type of design. I think SoundPEATS did an excellent job with cramming as much as they could in here, especially a 14mm driver, because this is the first pair that I've felt has some really nice bass to it. And I really like the clarity and the openness that it has. So for movies and podcasts, and as long as I'm not in an environment where there's a lot going on, this is actually a really nice pair to have and use in those situations. So yes, this is an easy pair to recommend. Obviously, if you're somebody that can't use normal earbuds, this would be at the front of the list. I just wish it had a few more features. I would happily pay a little bit more just to get those, but as it is, 40 bucks, impressive audio quality, really good battery life. Having that aptX adaptive is gonna keep it from having lag, but also make sure that you're getting the best sound quality you can get out of your earbuds. And it's just a great all-around pair to have in a small form factor that you can throw anywhere. So that's my video on the brand new SoundPEATS Air 3. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.